Vibhuti Pada. In Samadhi Pada, Patanjali explains why the intelligence is hazy, sluggish, and dull, and gives practical disciplines to minimize and finally eliminate the dross which clouds it. Through these, the sadhaka develops a clear head and an untainted mind, and his senses of perception are then naturally tamed and subdued. The sadhaka's intelligence and consciousness can now become fit instruments for meditation on the soul. In Vibhuti Pada, Patanjali first shows the sadhaka the need to integrate the intelligence, ego, and I principle. He then guides him in the subtle disciplines, concentration, that's dharana, meditation, that's dhyana, and total absorption, samadhi. With their help, the intelligence, ego, and I principle are sublimated. This may lead either to the release of various supernatural powers or to self-realization. Samyama. Patanjali begins this pada with dharana, concentration, and points out some places within and outside the body to be used by the seeker for concentration and contemplation. If dharana is maintained steadily, it flows into dhyana or meditation. When the meditator and the object meditated upon become one, dhyana flows into samadhi. Thus, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi are interconnected. This integration is called by Patanjali Samyama. Through Samyama, the intelligence, ego, and sense of individuality withdraw into their seed. The sadhaka's intelligence shines brightly with the luster of wisdom, and his understanding is enlightened. He turns his attention to a progressive exploration of the core of his being, the soul. Intelligence. Having defined the subtle facets of man's nature as intelligence, ego, and the I principle and the inner self, Patanjali analyzes them one by one to reveal their hidden content. He begins with the intellectual brain, which oscillates between one-pointed and scattered attention. If the sadhaka does not recollect how, where, and when his attention became disconnected from the object contemplated, he becomes a wanderer. His intelligence remains untrained. By careful observation and reflection on the qualities of intelligence, the sadhaka distinguishes between its multifaceted and its one-pointed manifestation, and between the restless and silent states. To help him, Patanjali explains how the discriminative faculty can be used to control emerging thought, to suppress the emergence of thought waves, and to observe the appearance of moments of silence. If the sadhaka observes and holds these intermittent periods of silence, he experiences a state of restfulness. If this is deliberately prolonged, the stream of tranquility will flow without disturbance. Holding this tranquil flow of calmness without allowing the intelligence to forget itself, the seeker moves toward the seer. This movement leads to inner attention and awareness, which in turn is the basis for drawing the consciousness towards integration with the inner self. When this integration is established, the seeker realizes that the contemplator, the instrument used for contemplation, and the object of contemplation are one and the same. the seer or the soul. In other words, subject, object, and instrument become one. Bringing the intelligence, buddhi, to a refined, tranquil steadiness is dharana. When this is achieved, buddhi is reabsorbed by a process of involution into the consciousness citta, whose inherent expression is a sharp awareness but without focus. This is dhyana. The discrimination and unwinking observation, which are properties of buddhi, must constantly be ready to prevent consciousness from clouding and dhyana from slipping away. Buddhi is the activator of pure citta. When the sadhaka has disciplined and understood the intelligence, the stream of tranquility flows smoothly, uninfluenced by pleasure or pain. Then he learns to exercise his awareness, to make it flow with peace and poise. This blending of awareness and tranquility brings about a state of virtue, which is the powerful ethic, or shakti of the soul, the culmination of intelligence and consciousness. This culturing of intelligence is an evolution, and virtue is its special quality. Maintenance of this civilized, cultured, virtuous state leads to a perfect propriety, wherein the intelligence continues to be refined, and the sadhaka moves ever closer to the spiritual zenith of yoga. Properties of yoga. Patanjali guides the refined sadhaka in tracing the movements, order, and sequence of each action and thought that arises. By retracing his steps through yogic discipline, the sadhaka coordinates his thoughts and actions so that there is no time gap between them. When there is absolute synchronicity of thought and action, the yogi is freed from the material limitations of time and space, and this generates extraordinary powers. Patanjali describes these powers as vibhutis, or properties of yoga. The properties of yoga are many. Experiencing even one of their extraordinary effects is an indication that the sadhaka is on the right path in his practice of yoga. However, see the next section, Caution. 1. He begins to know the past and the future. 2. He understands the language of all people, birds and animals. 3. He knows his past and future lives. 4. He reads the minds of others. 5. If necessary, he can define the precise details of what is in the minds of others. 6. He becomes invisible at will. 7. He can arrest the senses, hearing, touch, sight, taste and smell. 8. He knows the exact time of his death by intuition or through omens. 9. He is friendly and compassionate to all. 10. He becomes strong as an elephant, and his movements are as graceful as a peacock. 11. He clearly sees objects near and far, gross and fine, and concealed. 12. He knows the working of the solar system. 13. He knows the functions of the lunar system, and through that, the position of the galaxies. 14. He reads the movements of stars from the pole star and predicts world events. 15. He knows his body and its orderly functions. 16. He conquers hunger and thirst. 17. He makes his body and mind immobile like a tortoise. 18. He has visions of perfected beings, teachers and masters. 19. He has the power to perceive anything and everything. 20. He becomes aware of the properties of consciousness. 21. By knowing the properties of consciousness, he uses consciousness to light the lamp of the soul. 22. Divine faculties which are beyond the range of ordinary senses come to him because of his enlightened soul. 23. He leaves his body consciously and enters others' bodies at will. 24. He walks over water, swamp, and thorns. 25. He creates fire at will. 26. He hears distant sounds. 27. He levitates. 28. He frees himself from afflictions at will and often lives without a body. 29. He controls nature's constituents, qualities, and purposes. 30. He becomes lord of the elements and their counterparts. 31. He possesses an excellent body with grace, strength, perfect complexion, and luster. 32. He has perfect control over his senses and mind, and their contact with the lower self, or the I consciousness. 33. He transforms body, senses, mind, intelligence, and consciousness to utmost sharpness and speed in tune with his very soul. And 34. He gains dominion over all creation and all knowledge. Caution. These powers are extraordinary. The appearance of any one of them indicates that the sadhaka has followed methods appropriate to his evolution, but he should not mistake these powers for the goal of his search. For onlookers, they may seem to be great accomplishments, but for the sadhaka they are hindrances to samadhi. Even celestial beings try to seduce the sadhaka. If he succumbs to these temptations, misfortunes overwhelm him. If a yogi gets carried away by supernatural powers and uses them for fame, he fails in his sadhana. He is like a man who tries to save himself from the wind, only to get caught up in a whirlwind. A yogi who attains certain powers and misconstrues them for his goal is caught in their effects and exposes himself to their afflictions. Therefore Patanjali warns the sadhaka to renounce these accomplishments, so that the gates of everlasting bliss may open for him. He is counseled to develop non-attachment, which destroys pride, a cardinal pitfall for those who acquire powers. Adherence to the practice of yama and niyama, as described in Sadhanapada, will ensure that the sadhaka does not get caught up in these powers or misuse them. Moment and movement. Moment is subjective and movement is objective. Patanjali explains that the moment is the present, and the present is the eternal now. It is timeless and real. When it slips from attention, it becomes movement, and movement is time. As moment rolls into movement, the past and the future appear, and the moment disappears. Going with the movements of moments is the future. Retraction of this is the past. The moment alone is the present. Past and future create changes. The present is changeless. The fluctuations of consciousness into the past and future create time. If the mind, intelligence, and consciousness are kept steady and aware of moments without being caught in movements, the state of no mind and no time is experienced. This state is amanaskattva. The seer sees directly, independently of the workings of the mind. The yogi becomes the mind's master, not its slave. He lives in a mind-free, time-free state. This is known as vivekaja jnanam, vivid, true knowledge. Pure intelligence. Exalted intelligence is pure and true, untainted and uncontaminated. It distinguishes clearly and instantly the difference between similar entities without analyzing them according to rank, creed, quality, and place. This intelligence is true, pure, and clean, as is the very soul. The yogi who possesses it is free from pride and prejudice. His intelligence and consciousness now rise to the level of the soul. As honey tastes the same from whichever side of the honeycomb it is taken, so in the yogi, the body cells, senses, mind and intelligence, consciousness and conscience equally reflect the light of the soul. All parts of the seer appear as the soul. This is Kaivalya. It comes when the powers which attract the misguided but distract the yogi's consciousness are renounced.